All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm so happy to be here again. Today, I am joined by Uncle Greg. Okay, well, he's not Uncle Greg to all of y'all. He's Uncle Greg to me, though. Uh, no, he is not my uncle, but I have adopted him as such. Greg Richardson, thank you so much for being here with us today, my friend.
My pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yep. So we're going to do this just like we've done everybody else's. I wanted to ask you first, what has been unique for you about your experience with Freedom Church Windsor Mill?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can answer that on a couple of different, fronts. So,
Okay.
one of the things that have been sticking out to me recently, as far from being unique, is a phrase that I've heard spoken, and that is about gospeling ourselves. You need to gospel yourself. And quite frankly, that actually just fits in with everything that freedom is about. And so I remember when I first heard, I said, okay, well, I have received the gospel by faith.
Yeah.
I've already done that.
Yeah.
So as I began to hear others talk about that and also to meditate on what that means, it just really occurred to me that the gospel message is just not just for the lost. Gospel message is for us who believe and who have already received.
Amen.
And that everything that we do and everything that we think should have the gospel applied to that, our behaviors, our thought lives, just our lives, things like that. And so that is something that I have found to be very unique about freedom. I've never heard any other church speak that particular way, and it's unique also. It makes sense also because in my association with freedom, I'm seeing that is just not just a saying. Gospel yourself.
Yeah.
It is just intertwined in everything that they do from when you hear the word that's being ministered. It is very gospel centric, which is, it shouldn't be unique.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be different, but it's different and it's very refreshing. And not only that, but it's also in the music and the songs that are selected. It's in the different ministries, the Broken Loaves ministry, the D groups, which is the D groups, Manhood Monday. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I just find that to be something that has been a very unique experience for me. Freedom.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that. That is not something that began with Freedom Windsor Mill. Some people know the story, but we are the child of another Freedom Church, which is Freedom Church Hazelwood in Baltimore as well. But that was where that initiated, and I believe it began there. And just talking about gospeling yourself is this idea that the gospel is, it transcends the moment of your salvation. It continues. Like we need to remember what Jesus has done for us every single day. And bro, not even just for you, but for me as well. One of the reasons why I started saying it was just to remind myself, to be honest with you, just to remind myself, like, hey, no, one of my buddies told me, he said every morning he wakes up and he rehearses the gospel to himself.
Amen. Yes.
And I was like, man, that's brilliant, because we know, you wake up with all of yesterday's problems on your mind and all of today's troubles that's coming. And, so I think it is a brilliant thing to do. So I thank you for even mentioning that, because I wouldn't have thought that, because it's such a part of our experience that, it's always interesting to hear what's been unique. And hearing that was a good one. So, most of you who've been watching know that we've been talking about who we are as a church. We've talked about our mission, which is to draw to Christ, developing community, and deploy the culture. We just started talking about our values, so we're going to continue to get into that. I told Uncle Greg I wanted to ask him about one specific value, which is we are one. So, Uncle Greg, I just want your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences. You and I have had some conversations about this, but are there any thoughts about that particular value that you want to share with anybody else that's watching?
Yes, and again, that is obviously one of our values, and within that is, again, not just words, but also, but you see that in the different things that we do at Freedom.
Yeah.
I think about, for instance, D Group and how we get together for D Group. Yes, okay. And before I get there, I'm getting ahead of myself. Of course, I have a personal relationship with Christ, just as everyone else does. But the fact of the matter is I can grow, in my personal relationship with Christ, but it is not until I actually integrate and work and build relationships with others that I really see not just the difference in my life, but I also see Christ living out in other people.
Yeah.
And it really just it's an eye-opening experience for me, because it also gives me something like, hey, that's something good. I see that happening through this particular person, and that's got to be Christ doing that in them. And I believe that type of community, through things like D Group, Manhood Monday, that brings us together. It makes us one. I think about how when I think about the being of one, we all different. We look different, we act different, we think different, but being one doesn't mean that we're the same. It does mean that we're the same in mind, but it doesn't mean that we're the same, although we're the same in mind and heart, doesn't necessarily mean that our thought processes go through the same through the same path.
Yeah, like the same in expression, for sure. Yeah.
Exactly, but the bottom line is it's going to end at this place. So we all have different paths and different roads, but they all start at with the gospel that we talked about earlier today, and it all ends with us loving one another, caring for one another, and just believing the same thing about the gospel and the gospel message. And I just think that is key, because we can't do it alone.
Yeah.
We cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
And that's why I think that having that we are one as one of our core values is brilliant.
Yeah.
So.
And it's interesting, because I feel like it even speaks to, we're living in a very interesting day.
Yes.
And there are a lot of things that divide us. And not just racial tension, because I know that that's where people's minds go to first and foremost at this point. But we are even divided on what to do about the coronavirus, and how do we approach community in the church and outside the church and at work environments. And, there's a lot of division. Can you just speak for a second? Because I've been, having conversations about this, and, that we believe that the church should model for culture what culture should be, not the opposite way around.
That's right.
I think we are one, being united. You said something. You said we're not the same, but we have the same mind. How do you feel? How do you feel like people can benefit from that? How do you feel like the church could, even in this situation, do a better job with that?
Yeah. Okay. So when I think about us being of the same mind, first of all, when I know that someone really has an interest in my well-being, when I know that, then it makes a difference on how I interpret whatever it is that they're saying or whatever it is that they are doing, And so it just makes me look at them different. I could go and talk about this a bit, so I'm trying to keep my. Anyway, the point being is when I hear them talking, although I might say, well, I could have taken it this way, or I could have said that way. If I'm one with them, and I understand where they're coming from, and I understand that their interest is not in, in making me feel a bad way in some way, that their interest is in my growth and my well-being,
Yeah.
it makes me respond. And the only way that you're going to do that is by, first of all, being one of the same mind.
Yeah. As we wrap this thing up, because both of us, we could have this conversation for a while. I want to circle back to, you said gospel yourself.
Yes.
I think the reality that we all need to remember is that the gospel is what's made us one.
Yes.
That was a promise that he would take Jew and Gentile and unite them together. And so we are one in Christ, and he did that work. I think, to your point, remaining one of the same mind, I use this analogy in my marriage all the time. My wife and I are two different people. You get to see it more than anybody. you get to see it more than anybody else in D group, because we are just ourselves, And so one of the things that I've said in our relationship is we are two different people, so we'll never be the same. But God has made us one. Our oneness is every day we choose to walk in the same direction. We choose to go the same way. Now, we have differences of opinions of how to get to the same end, but we're headed in the same direction. And I think that that's a brilliant point, because I think a lot of people hear oneness and think sameness, and they're not the same thing. We can be one and differ. We can be one and still disagree. We can be united and be uniquely us. And I just think that that's something that the world needs right now. So I'm grateful for you bringing it up.
Thank you.
For sure. I am grateful, as I've heard you express so many times, to just be a part of this church where you get to see this.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. So
I'm happy to be a part. I really am.
Yes, sir. Uncle Greg. I want y'all to give Uncle Greg a round of applause. Y'all can't actually do it, but I want y'all to do it anyway. Don't nobody else call him Uncle Greg, though. That's for me, okay? In my family.
Except for Sheree and Brandon.
Okay, they can do it. Thank you so much for doing this. We appreciate it. I hope you guys tune in for the next episode. Thank you again.